Welcome everyone. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation with the intriguing topic of unlocking the secrets of English words. Today, we'll be exploring some unusual spellings that make the language both fascinating and challenging. We'll look at why some words are spelled the way they are and uncover patterns behind these peculiarities. So, get ready for an engaging journey into the quirks of English spelling. Let's get started. Let's talk about some interesting quirks in English spelling. Some words, like anxious, don't give us any clues about how to spell them just by looking at them. They can be tricky because they don't follow the usual patterns. We also have words where certain letters don't make any sound at all, such as the B in doubt. These are called silent letters, and they can make spelling even more challenging. Another key point is that many English words sound completely different from how they look when written. Just because a word is spelled a certain way doesn't mean it will sound that way when you say it. All of these things bring us to the idea of unusual spellings in English. They can be confusing, but understanding these patterns helps us become better at reading and writing. As we continue, we'll explore why these irregularities exist and how to navigate them more confidently. Let's look at some more examples of silent consonants. Can you think of words where certain consonants are written but not actually pronounced? For instance, in the word W in wrong, the W isn't spoken. Similarly, in B in subtle, the B is silent, and in K in night, the K isn't sounded out. These are what we call silent consonants, letters that are written but remain quiet when we pronounce the word. Understanding these silent letters is important because they can affect spelling and pronunciation, even though we don't hear them. They are often tricky, but once you recognize them, it makes reading and spelling much easier. These silent consonants are a key part of the quirks in English spelling, and knowing about them helps us become more confident in our language skills. Let's take a closer look at the concept of silent vowels. On this slide, we have a fun little phrase. Hear the E, and then a playful challenge. Say cantaloupe, do you? This is to get us thinking about how vowels can sometimes be written but not actually pronounced. Now notice the examples listed here. The E in cantaloupe, the U in guard, and the E in riddle. These are classic cases of silent vowels, letters that we see in words but don't actually make a sound when we say the word aloud. The key point here is that these are what we call silent vowels, hidden sounds that are written but not pronounced. They often appear in English spelling and can be tricky because they influence how we spell words, but they don't add to the sound. Understanding silent vowels helps us improve pronunciation and spelling. Recognizing these silent letters is crucial for mastering the quirks of English pronunciation, which ties right into our overall theme of decoding tricky spellings and sounds. All right, let's talk about avoiding embarrassment when spelling tricky words. Remember, one of the key tips is to pay attention to double letters. For example, take the word embarrass. Notice how it has a double R and a doubles. These double letters are often the tricky part for many people. Some words are spelled differently because of these doubled letters, and that's why it's important to remember them. Double R, doubles, these are the main points to keep in mind. Think of it as double trouble if you forget. So, whenever you're unsure about a word, check for doubled letters. They can make all the difference in avoiding spelling errors and, ultimately, embarrassment. Let's take a closer look at how spelling can sometimes be tricky, but also quite interesting. On this slide, we're focusing on visualizing the spelling of certain words. For example, the word depot is a storage place, but notice how the silent T isn't pronounced. It's a small detail that can easily be overlooked, but is important for correct spelling. Next, we have queue, which is a line of people waiting. The interesting part here is the silent UU. Those letters don't make a sound, but they help us recognize the word visually and spell it correctly. And then there's yacht, which is a large, expensive boat. Here, the silent CH might seem confusing at first, but understanding these silent parts helps us become better at spelling and reading. This slide is part of our vocabulary spotlight on visual words, which means we're emphasizing how seeing the words helps us understand and remember their spelling, even when parts of them are silent. Recognizing these patterns is a big step toward improving our spelling skills and making our reading more fluent. Remember, Visualizing the words helps us connect their spelling to their meaning, making learning both fun and effective. These words describe feelings and ideas, not things you can touch. They help us express emotions or thoughts that are more abstract. For example, a secret plot or a feeling of curiosity or interest are things we can't see or hold, but we can definitely feel or imagine them. Let's look at the word intrigue. It describes that sense of curiosity or interest that pulls us in, even if we don't fully understand something. It's about that mysterious feeling that makes us want to learn more. Notice the silent U at the end. That's part of what makes this word special. Next, we have vague. This word describes something that is uncertain, indefinite, or unclear. Maybe a vague idea or a vague answer. That's when things aren't fully clear or detailed. The silent U in this word helps give it that soft, unsure sound, matching its meaning. Finally, there's anxious. This word shows a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about an event or outcome. It's that fluttery, unsettled feeling we get when we're unsure about what's going to happen next. The silent I in anxious makes it sound a bit more delicate, matching the gentle worry it describes. Now, I want to highlight that these are what we call abstract words. They help us talk about feelings and ideas, things we experience internally, not physical objects. Recognizing these words is really useful because they add depth to our communication, helping us express complex emotions and thoughts clearly. Remember, in our overall journey, understanding these words helps us become more precise and expressive in our language. Let's take a closer look at some key words and their meanings. First, we have jeopardy, which refers to the danger of loss, harm, or failure. It highlights situations where something valuable is at risk. Next is disguise, which means giving a new appearance to conceal its true identity. This is often used when someone wants to hide who they really are. Moving on, epitome is a perfect example of a quality or type, representing the best or most typical instance. Then we have villain, a character whose evil actions or motives are important to the plot, often serving as the antagonist. Lastly, cordial describes someone who is warm and friendly, creating a welcoming atmosphere. These words are not only important vocabulary, but also connect to many stories, movies, and even real-life situations. As we go through this interactive challenge, you'll see how matching these words to their meanings will help reinforce your understanding. Remember, grasping these concepts is key to improving your language skills and understanding the nuances of storytelling and communication. All right, let's see if we can solve them all. On this slide, we're focusing on a fun interactive challenge, unscrambling words. We have 5 sets of jumbled words here, each with a key term that relates to our overall theme. First up, we have liaison, which is about establishing connections and communication. Then there's noisial, which, when unscrambled, becomes liaison again. It's a little reminder of how important clear communication is. Next, we have debt, which is straightforward but reminds us of obligations or responsibilities we might carry. Then, tbed, which unscrambles to bled, a less common word, but it can relate to bleeding or loss, symbolizing setbacks or challenges. Moving on, we have fatigue, a familiar word that refers to exhaustion, something we all face and need to manage effectively. Then, tgifaue, which unscrambles to fatigue again, reinforcing that point. Finally, we have sergeant, highlighting leadership or authority, and generasde, which unscrambles to generate, emphasizing the power of creating solutions or ideas. And league, symbolizing teamwork and collaboration. The overall idea here is that these words, when unscrambled, tie into key concepts like communication, responsibility, challenge, fatigue, leadership, and teamwork. This challenge isn't just about wordplay, it's about engaging us to think about how these elements play a role in our work or personal growth. So I invite you to participate actively. Try unscrambling these words in your mind, or out loud if you like. It's a fun way to reinforce the idea that sometimes solving complex problems is just about looking at things from a different perspective. Let's take a closer look at some interesting quirks in the English language. On this slide, you'll see words like shout, doubt, and better. These words might look simple, but their pronunciation can be quite tricky because they sound similar to other words. Notice the word debtor? It sounds just like debt, but they're spelled very differently. Then there's the word blue, which rhymes with flew and through, which sounds the same but is spelled differently. We also have words like flight and blight. They rhyme, even though they look quite different visually. And while we're on the topic of pronunciation, look at while and isle. They sound almost identical, but their spellings are completely different. The key insight here is that English has many words that rhyme or sound alike, but are spelled differently. This can definitely trip up even native speakers. So, the main point to remember is that pronunciation and spelling don't always go hand in hand. Recognizing these patterns can help us improve our understanding and usage of the language, especially in writing and communication. It's a fascinating aspect that ties into the larger theme of language complexity and the importance of clarity in our communication. Now let's look at an example. After the long hike, a feeling of fatigue set in. Fatigue is that tiredness or exhaustion we feel after physical or mental effort. It's important to recognize fatigue because it can affect our performance and safety. Moving on, we have the word yacht. Imagine a beautiful yacht sailing peacefully on the ocean. It symbolizes luxury and leisure. Recognizing such images helps us understand context and descriptive language. Lastly, there's the word villain. Think of a classic movie villain wearing a clever disguise. It shows how appearances can be deceptive and how important context is when interpreting characters or situations. Overall, these examples highlight how understanding keywords helps us grasp the bigger picture in language and communication. Remember, use these words in practice by creating sentences that connect them to real-life scenarios. Let's wrap up with some fun and interesting points about spelling. On this final slide, we're focusing on unusual spellings. Your challenge this week is to find 3 new words with unusual spellings. I encourage you to use a dictionary to verify these words because it's always good to double-check. Remember, the goal is to discover surprises in English spelling, which is full of quirks and interesting patterns. The key takeaway here is that English spelling is often unpredictable, and exploring these unusual words helps us appreciate its complexity. So, in summary, your challenge is to find and verify 3 new words with unusual spellings, and always keep exploring the surprises that come with learning English. This approach not only makes learning fun, but also deepens your understanding of the language's fascinating quirks.